Hello, everybody, and welcome to our fourth event in our Aditi College application series. Today, we'll be going over international applications. And I do also just want to apologize for the scheduling issues and what forced us to reschedule this week. But I'm super excited for all the stuff that we'll cover during today's panel. So just to go over the agenda and the overview of what we'll do today, first, I'm just going to go over an introduction of our panelists and what the panel will look like. Then I'll start off with the registration questions. So all the different questions that were submitted prior to the start of the event. And so we have registration questions in three categories. So in financial aid and building a college list, in GPA and academic performance, and then some people also ask for specific situational questions. And then finally, after that, we'll open it up to Q&A. So at any point during the stream, feel free to send in any questions in the YouTube chat, and we'll answer those questions at the end as well. So just to start off with an overview of who is joining us for today's panel. So we have three amazing panelists. First, we have Aditi, who is a current student, an incoming student at New York University. She's currently on her gap year though. So Aditi is an incoming freshman currently on a gap year at New York University studying mathematics. She is an international student from India and is also a recruited athlete in college. In high school, her extracurriculars included varsity athletics, research, and volunteer work. Next up, we have Chaplin Huang, who is a current freshman at the University of Chicago. So Chaplin is a freshman at the University of Chicago studying economics and computer science. She is a boxer, entrepreneur, and music producer. She is an international student from China. And then finally, last but not least, we have Natasha, who is a 19-year-old student and a freshman at Georgia Tech. So she is an intersectional feminist, social activist, and pioneer enthusiast from Hyderabad, India. When she's not engaging in debates about physics, philosophy, and politics, she's usually rewatching haiku for the 18th time, working at education-centered nonprofits, and curating Spotify playlists. She believes in declaring missions, not majors. After a typical 6-month stint in existential crises, followed by your mandatory soul searching, she wants to make education accessible, inclusive, and personalized all over the world with her people at Georgia Tech, where she is currently majoring in computational media. She's interested in the intersection of technology and design and wants to create human-centered experiences. So those are our three amazing panelists. So we'll be starting off by again answering the questions that were submitted during registration, and then we'll answer all of your questions that you submit in the chat at the end. So feel free to send them as they come throughout. And so I'll get started with our first round of questions. So the first couple of questions are on financial aid and building a college list. And so I'll start off by asking them, and any panelists who wants to jump in, just feel free to jump in to answer the question. So the first question that we have here is, what scholarships and financial aid are available for international students?
Okay, I'm gonna jump in first and talk about what I know. So I know that for international students, there are scholarships that are need-based as well as merit-based, basically like depending on your awards and your scores. I think basically need-based, need-based is also divided into need-blind and the other kind, which they kind of like consider whether that they consider the scholarship into admission. So if you're like applying with scholarship, it will be like harder for you to get in. I think that for a lot of Ivies, you might need to look into the website specifically, but for a lot of Ivy League schools, they're like need blind. So as long as you get in and you need that scholarship, they will provide you with that. But there are schools that are providing the other kind. So they put consideration of scholarships into your admission. I know that for Stanford and U Chicago, they are considering scholarship within your application when you're applying as international students. And also the other kind is merit-based. And I think that's kind of like, that's a little bit rare for international students. As far as I know, I only know USC did that merit scholarship, and you need to apply early for that thing. But I think I'm not talking about everything. So if everyone else wants to jump in, feel free to.
Okay, so as just to elaborate on what Chaplin said, there's two kinds of scholarships and two kinds of aid that you can get. This is like not only specific to international students, but like for everybody. That's need-based and merit-based, both for scholarships and for aid. Now with aid, it's a lot harder to get aid for internationals because most colleges are need aware. There are only 5 schools which are need blind, and that's Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Amherst, and MIT. And that means that they don't consider your aid requirement when they go through your application. It does not mean that you're going to get 100% of the aid that you need. It just means that when they go through your application, they won't look at how much aid you need, and they will just read your application like everybody else's. For the other colleges, the amount of money that you need definitely factors into their decision, and in some colleges plays a larger role. What was I saying? Yeah, so merit-based aid is more merit-based. So for some, you have to apply separately. Some have need and merit-based combined. So you just, okay, sorry. So need-based aid, for aid, you have to fill out the CSS, which is the College Board, whatever, financial aid. I don't know what the full form is, but you can't fill out the FAFSA like the Americans can. That's only for federal state aid, and only American citizens can get that. So if you are a citizen, but you live outside of the US, then you can still apply for that and get federal aid. But if not, then you can't. So yeah, you just fill out the CSS. For some schools have need-based and merit-based scholarships that you have to apply to externally, like USC, for example. But USC has this weird thing where you have to show proof that you can pay the full tuition of $70,000 a year before you apply for the scholarships, which is really doesn't make much sense, but that's what it is. And then some don't need you to apply separately. They just automatically consider you into like the scholarship category and then just pick out whoever they want the scholarship to go to. There's also external scholarships, which are a lot rarer for internationals, but they are still available. These are from organizations outside of colleges, like they're not affiliated to any college at all. Like, and generally the amounts are a lot smaller, probably like $500 to like maximum 5,000, unless like there are one or two that give you like $25,000 or something. But these generally are like essay based. Some don't even require you to write an essay, you just fill out a form. But yeah, so sorry, that was a bit long.
No, thank you so much, both of you, for breaking down the scholarships and financial aid available. I think that it is a little bit, it's definitely unfortunate and challenging for international students that there is a lot more competition and it is a lot more difficult to get financial aid. But I think don't lose hope, and the first step is just knowing what isn't available. So on that topic, how should a student weigh finances and tuition prices when trying to decide on a college list? And Natasha, do you want to start off with this question?
Yeah, I can start off. I think firstly, I do resonate with the fact that it's really unfortunate that students don't get international students don't get the same opportunities that a lot of in-state and out-of-state students get here. That being said, so one thing I like to tell all international students out there is your financial health is the most important thing when you're looking at colleges. If you're comparing two colleges and they're both relatively good colleges, one of them is giving you aid or more aid than the other one, I would say go ahead with it, because there are a lot of, regardless of the brand name of your school, you can still make really good opportunities for yourself once you are at college. So for me, when I was weighing my finances and tuition costs, because Georgia Tech doesn't give any like immediate scholarships for incoming freshmen. There are some scholarships you can apply for after you're here, but you have to, but you don't get to apply for them when you're coming in as a freshman. So for me, it was always very important to say, okay, if this is the amount of fees I'm paying for this college, what is the return on investment? So that really factored into my degree, and then the graduate employment rate, internship opportunity. So when I was deciding my college, I realized that Georgia Tech was kind of sad to say this, but it was the least tuition that I had to pay out of all the colleges that I was applying to. And I also realized that they had a really good internship and co-op program. A lot of students graduated with jobs in hand and with really well-paying jobs. And Georgia Tech is known for its College of Computing and College of Engineering, which is where I wanted to go. So I kind of positioned myself in a place where I knew that after I come here, my return on investments will be really, really great. And I'll be able to either pay for my tuition or pay off loans or whatever. So I would say, please make sure that your finances are the first thing that you're thinking about if you really need aid. Although there are not a lot of external scholarships, I would say the minute you're here in college, and I'm sure, Chaplin can also, agree with this, there are a lot of opportunities to do a lot of things, not just scholarships. I'm talking about internships you can apply for. I'm talking about co-op programs that you can look at. So if you are going to a school where you know that you'll get these opportunities, I would recommend you just go for it. So really look at, I know I'm being very abstract and vague, but look for a school that you know will help you get a job or get an internship or really help you out with your financial, aid stuff.
Sorry, quickly, I would also just want to add 1 second that if you, okay, not if you, but college net price calculators are like an amazing resource to figure out approximately how much tuition you're going to end up paying. Now, not all of these are accurate, then they're more catered to American students, but you can still kind of get a good idea of so if I get in, this is approximately how much I'm going to pay. For American students, it's kind of more in the range of like plus or minus 5,000, but I would say keep it at like a minus 10,000. So like whatever they give you, add 10,000 to that or like 5,000 to that, and then say, okay, that's how much I'm going to be paying. And then accordingly apply to the schools that you want to apply to, because financials is like Natasha said, is a huge part of college. So you should definitely consider it.
Thank you so much for all of that. And I feel like it is just really important to be realistic with yourself and just be very clear with yourself about how much can I afford and how much will I get out of attending college. And I really love the phrase return on investment. And so just kind of going deeper into the idea of building a collegeist, a person asked, when considering to apply early decision, should I choose a university that have a better chance of getting a full ride at or getting a large scholarship at, or should I go for a college that's better? Which obviously that is subjective, but, and anyone can go ahead and take a question.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, Aditi, go ahead. I'll go after you. It's fine.
Okay, so this is very, very, very subjective. It also depends heavily on the amount of aid that you need, or how far you're willing to go in terms of aid. It also depends on how, on what better quote unquote is and how much of a difference there is, not only academically. I think people consider like, okay, this is a better college, this is a quote unquote worse college based just on rankings, and that's no. There's a lot of factors that go into what make a college good. So things like employment rates. Personally, if you're looking for a college that has a lot of diversity, then that's your factor. If you want high graduate rates, then that's yours. If you want better professors, then that's your selection of better. But it depends heavily on what you're comparing and how much of a difference it is. This is not going to be very helpful, but I would say definitely think about how much of an improvement paying whatever amount it is you're paying is going to be. If it's not a lot, take the full ride. You're not going to lose all that much. But if you think that it is a significant improvement and you don't mind paying the money, like you can afford it and you're not going to go into like severe loans or debt, then I would say you can go to the better college, whichever that one is. But also, this is a very personal decision. You should talk it over with your family, figure it all out together. Don't try to just make it like in 1 second. You have like a month to decide, or slightly more, after your results come out to when you have to commit. So take all that whole month and really think about all the factors and everything that makes up both of those, or what, all of those schools, and then make your decision based on however you want to.
Just adding on to that, I think firstly the topic of like figuring out what better means is an amazing thing to bring up, because I think you have to. I just tell people go beyond the QS World Rankings. Like I get it, Stanford is number one or MIT is number one, but I see the list. But is it the better college for you? It depends on what you need from a college. So when you're looking at it, for example, I looked at graduation rates and opportunities, and I looked at research opportunities. So those were my two areas of focus. For other people, it's different things. Some people care about like whether it's a city or it's in like it's a rural setting because of how they want to live their 4 years. So really try to figure out what's working for you. That being said, when applying early decision, I've seen people do it for two reasons. Number one, they think they have a better chance of getting into university because the acceptance rates are more. Or number two, they need a full ride scholarship. So the first one, I don't know how true this is, but I'm pretty sure it's not that big of a difference. Apart from some universities like Duke and stuff, you don't really have a better chance of getting in because of ED than it is for RD. The rates the percentages just look different because they're accepting a lot of recruited athletes and stuff. That being said, I would say look, if there's a university that you are dying to go to, you're like either this or nothing else, and it's a university that's not giving you full ride scholarship, but it's still your dream university. If you have a dream university, I would recommend you just apply for it in early decision, because you're going to regret not doing that. Because if I'm not is it early action or early decision which is binding? I'm sorry, it's been
Early
a while.
decision is the binding one.
Early decision is the binding one. So you don't want to regret the fact that you didn't apply to this university and think, oh, what if I got into this place? That being said, if you don't have a dream college, if you don't have this one do or die, then definitely go for a college that has that where you have a better chance of getting a full ride. I think that would be really, really beneficial.
Thank you so much for those. And just two things I just want to very quickly put in here. First, I do want to say, just on the topic of building a college list, we have actually had a previous workshop specifically on a college list. So definitely, if you're watching the live stream, head to our channel, obviously after watching this event today. And we have a specific session where we go really in depth on like factors to consider when creating your college list. And the second thing I want to just mention here is that when you're applying early decision, do look into the policies with the binding restrictions in institutions. There are some institutions where if you get in early decision, you absolutely must go. And then there are other institutions where you do have to go, but there are cases where they'll give exceptions if the financial aid cost is too much for you to afford. So if finances are really important, that is something else that you want to check the websites for, reach out to the admissions officers to get clarification on what that restriction is with regards to tuition costs. So for the interest of time, I am going to skip the fourth question. I will just briefly say that if you're looking for diversity rates, there are many websites that give you approximate percentages. Even College Board on their Big Future website, you can find a lot of statistics about diversity. But I think it is very important to consider that many US institutions are primarily white institutions. And also the diversity percentage is only half the battle, but it's also about what clubs are available on campus, what support groups are available on campus. So don't solely look at the stats, but also look at other opportunities on campus that encompass diversity as well. And so to go to the fifth question, here a student asked about how we can stand out from other applicants as an international student. So Chaplin, would you like to start off here?
Okay, so I'm gonna start with what I usually do to consider this question. So at least in China, and I believe in other countries, there will be similar platforms. Basically, there will be platforms that past applicants post their application materials there, and basically go through like the scores and the awards and the activities, as well as the college that apply, as well as get into or denied or waitlisted. And by actually like browsing those information, you kind of have an idea of how the international students are like in your country or in other country that are like not US. And basically with those information, you basically get an idea of like what kind of activity would be considered as unique. I'm saying this just for like college application. Of course, this is like for life, we can do whatever we want to do. But yeah, for application, I would think that there should be a balance where you do what you want to do, as well as trying to do some activity that stand out. So you're like, yeah, you're satisfying both part. So after you view those things, you kind of want to avoid the activities that other people have been doing, or at least you want to try to create something more unique. Yeah, that's what I've been thinking about. So I'm just gonna give an example. So at least in China, we have a lot of kids who are just want to apply for econ and business. They're doing tons of like business competitions and tons of like just econ club. And those are kind of like, they must be things that they like, but that's essentially like not gonna help you stand out. So you would probably think about, okay, if I want to do business, what other opportunities can I possibly do? So maybe, write a research paper of a specific topic that you are especially interested about, or, I don't know, like write a small article or small book about one specific topic that you're super interested about, just something that you are still interested in, but it's kind of different. Yeah, that's what I would suggest people to do.
Thank you so much for that. So I am going to move on, but if at any point any other panelists wants to jump in, feel free to go ahead. But now I'm going to go on to the next set of questions, which are about GPA and academic performance. So the first question, I am just going to again go through quite quickly for the interest of time, but academic transcripts are basically a record of all of the grades and the performance that you've done throughout your high school career. Different schools create their transcripts differently. Generally, it will have your grades for the 4 years of high school. Some schools also include test scores, other schools don't. That'll vary by schools, but as students, you don't need to worry about your academic transcripts. That's going to be submitted by your school counselor. And so on the topic of school counselor, the next question that we have here is that a student is asking that their school doesn't have a counselor. And so what should that student do for the counselor recommendation? Aditi, would you like to answer this question?
Yeah, okay. So this is like, okay, so the term is counselor recommendation, but the person doesn't actually have to be a counselor. It can be any teacher in your school. It doesn't even have to be a teacher. It can be your principal, vice principal, headmistress, anybody in the school, like that's like a school official and who knows you and who can write a recommendation and submit everything. You can just put their name down. They don't have to have the title of counselor or academic counselor, career counselor. It doesn't have to have any of that. My school did have a counselor who was like a psychological counselor, but she also did the counselor recommendation for all of us. But I do know a lot of people that just put down their principal names or other teachers that did not write the teacher recommendation for them. You can't have two people doing the same thing. You can't have a teacher writing both the teacher recommendation and the counselor recommendation. They have to be separate, but they can be anybody in your school.
Thank you. So the next question that we have is that on a similar note, this international student doesn't have, in their school, they don't calculate GPA. So how can I convert my school scores, oh my God, I'm so sorry, to the American GPA system? Natasha or Chaplin, but if you like to answer this question?
Okay, my school also didn't calculate GPA and we also didn't have a counselor, so life's fun. I remember what I did is I spoke to our teacher of mine and then we calculated based on some metrics that we found online on how I would rank in the system. That being said, I just put like an arbitrary score that my teacher and I had deduced from our calculations. But I mentioned in my common application that my school doesn't have GPA, so this is just like a very average estimate of what it might be. And I made sure to mention that in my interviews as well. To be very honest, a lot of college applications, like the people who are reading your applications, they kind of look for context. They're not looking for a standardized system because they know that you don't have the same, you're not living in the same system that kids in the US are. So they're not going to take your GPAs that seriously. They're just going to look at your academic transcripts because that gives them a better idea. Because this person is reading more than 1,000 applications easily from people from your region. So they know kind of they will do the calculation on their own, I guess, to put it bluntly. So you don't have to really worry so much about, oh, what number will I fill? Because once they have your academic transcripts of them, they're going to rate it on a different scale that they know and they understand.
Thank you for that. And so the final question. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm talking a lot, but so colleges don't actually require you to state your GPA in your application. This is a very common misconception, and I had the same one too, but like you don't have to. You can if you want to, but not calculate GPA, and this is not official. You can do it for like curiosity's sake if you want to. I wouldn't recommend it because generally the numbers are a lot lower than what they actually are, just because the systems are very different. Also, colleges are not going to compare you to applicants in the US or from schools that have the Americanized school system. You're going to be compared to students that are in and around your area in similar background at school. So you don't have to worry about, oh, wait, I'm like, according to the American GPA, I might be like a 2.5, and then they're going to compare me to a 3.5, and I'm not going to get it. Not how it works at all. You're only going to be compared to people in and around your area, so you don't have to worry about that.
Thank you for that. And then just, go ahead.
Yeah, can I add something? So yeah, I totally agree with Aditi and Natasha. And I also think that there are other ways to actually prove your GPA. So if you don't have like a Americanized GPA, it's okay, because there might be other chances for you to prove your score. So like either you're at top of the 10% in your school, you can actually mention that in your application materials, or other scores that you indicate, probably SAT or AP. Those are other things that can prove your academics. So if you don't have a GPA, definitely don't panic. It's totally fine. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so to move on to the next question, this person wants to apply to a college but thinks that their GPA is too low. So how do you know if your GPA is good enough? And if your GPA isn't good enough, then what can you do? Would anyone like to grab this question?
Okay, should I go?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. So the only way you're gonna know if your GPA is good enough is if you convert it. Now, what I found is I'm in India. My school has severe grade deflation. So when I calculated my GPA, it was like a 2.0. But I knew that wasn't true because I was like, I mean, well, my grades weren't that bad. They weren't excellent, but they weren't that bad. What I generally say is try to stay at like the top 15-20% of your class. I generally try to compare it to the people around you, because that's what the admissions officers are also going to be comparing it to. They are not comparing you to some random person in like Minnesota or something who has a perfect 4.0. No, that's not how it works. They're looking at how you do around your classmates and what you did with the opportunities that were given to you in your school. So different schools have different environments. And so, yeah, you're just going to be, they're going to look at your rank and how you compare to your class. If your school doesn't rank, then, and you kind of know in average, like where you stand, like in the top 10 or top 15% of your class, you can definitely mention that in your application just to let them know. But yeah, I would try to stay in that belt. For the more competitive colleges, you want to have your grades up higher. So like I would say, I generally just say top 15, top 20% overall as a benchmark. If it's not, you can't change your grades of the previous year. There's nothing you can do about it. It's okay. It's fine if you didn't do very great in 1 year, move on. You still have the rest, whatever years are left of your high school. Try to get your GPA, okay, no, try to get your grades up during those years. Upward trends are very good. Like, I mean, colleges love to see upward trends of grades because it just shows that you're working harder and you're trying to get better and you're improving. And well, that's all we're all trying to do in life. So yeah, definitely try to get your grades higher. It's okay even if you're in 11th and you're like, oh wait, my 9th and 10th was good, my 11th was bad. It's okay. You can still try to get your grades up in 12th and it won't make any kind of bad impact on your application.
For sure. And I think just repeating a phrase that someone had mentioned earlier, I forgot who, but the most important thing is not to panic. After a certain point, like Aditi mentioned, there's only so much you can do about your GPA. And so while throughout your high school career, you should strive to be at the top of your class, like the top 20% or above in your class. After a certain point, if your GPA just isn't there, then don't lose fright. Like there's so many cases of people who have gotten like low GPA scores or low SAT scores or AP scores or other exam scores and still have made it into top institutions. So GPA is only one part of the puzzle, but especially for US, remember the applications are holistic. And so you also want to consider things such as extracurriculars, what your own personal struggles and challenges you've endured that may explain why your GPA is low, things like that. So the most important thing is not to lose hope and to focus on what you can control instead of what you can after you reach that point in the process. And so now we're going to move on to this group of questions from the registration questions, which are a lot more situational. So people asking about more specific cases. And so after I'm done with these, I am also going to start answering questions from the YouTube stream that I feel also are situational. So the first question I think is for Aditi, specifically asking about NYU. And so does NYU provide financial aid to international students? This person is very fond of NYU, but it's out of their budget. And so they'd love to know more about this.
Yeah, so NYU does give financial aid to internationals. NYU has a combination of need and merit-based aid. So to qualify for aid, you just have to fill out the CSS. Now, the big taboo of NYU is that they don't give out enough aid, which is true, I will say. The problem is because they have a huge student body, like we have 25,000 undergraduates. That's like 6,500 approximate a year, which is a lot of students. And even though their overall budget is very high, higher than a lot of other colleges, they just cannot give everybody the aid they need. This is for both Americans and internationals, which is why a lot of internationals don't apply, but they do give out aid. And I know a lot of people that have got full rides or nearly full rides or whatever, how much ever aid they needed. I will say though that if money, like if the financials are really not bleak for you and you really need the money, and don't put NYU as like an ED school. I wouldn't do that because there's no guarantee that you're going to get the amount of money that you need. This is true for all colleges, but more so for NYU, just because the aid for American students itself is very scattered and not consistent at all. So if you're considering applying, then yeah, give the RD application a shot. They only have one supplemental essay, which is a YNYU, which is like, I mean, you can just like copy paste the essay. So if you really like the college, then definitely submit an application and fill out the CSS, but I wouldn't put it down as an ED school. ED1 or ED2, they have both. I wouldn't do that, especially if the financials mean a lot to you.
Yeah. And so I do just want to make 2 points here. So the first one is just a bit more general, and so not just specifically for NYU, but for any institution. I think that one thing is that you never really know what aid you will get until you get the acceptance letter. And I think this is more so for NYU because it's just so random. And so if you can afford I think if there's any school that you want to apply to, but the application fee cost is high. You should always like just shoot an email to the admissions officer and even just ask for a fee waiver, because there are even cases where you might think that your income is too high for a fee waiver, but admissions officers will still give you a fee waiver anyway. So definitely ask for that. And then just give it a shot. You won't know what aid you will get until you apply. Obviously, as Aditi mentioned earlier, net calculators are very helpful to get a gauge, but they can only tell you so much and they can only be so accurate. So I would definitely say to just shoot your shot, but only if you're able to afford the total cost of all of the application fees, because they can stack up quite quickly. And then the second thing I just want to mention here is that NYU is an institution that does say for their early decision policy that they can make exceptions if you if the financial aid awarded isn't enough, but it is still tricky to go through that appeal process. So it is safer to err on the side of caution if you're in a position where it's hard for you to pay the large sticker price for NYU. So moving on to the next question. The next person is asking how a student can make extensive growth in prepping for the SAT exam in just 2 months while still balancing challenging coursework. Anyone can grab this question.
Yeah, so I actually prepped my SAT exam in about 2 months, but I didn't balance, I didn't have like challenging coursework. Of course, I was doing other projects, but they weren't like schoolworks. But like the most important suggestion I would give you is to definitely just like plan beforehand. So like how many exercise, how many tests that you're going to do each day, and like how much you want to improve, probably like in a week, in 2 weeks, and how you're going to like review everything. Definitely like plan your SAT prep test so you won't like panic after like 1 month and then realize that you haven't done anything. But if you want to balance challenging coursework, that like first of all you need to think about like what kind of coursework is it. So if it's like humanities, sociology, things like that, you can actually use the readings you're having to kind of like prep for your SAT. Because I think like a huge challenge for international students to do SAT is reading, and like speed reading is such an important thing for us to prepare. So if you have those readings in your coursework, definitely use those things as some tools you can have to prepare for SAT. So do them really quickly, make notes, try to actively like think about the content that would be helpful for your SAT reading. And for math, I think you can just do like what for my suggestion, I think you can just do like past exam papers probably like once or twice a week, and after you got like, I don't know, 90 to 100% correctness for more than 5 times, you can just not do it. Yeah, that's what I feel. I feel like reading is the challenging part for international students, but I don't know whether Aditi and Natasha agrees with that. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that advice.
I also just want to quickly add that consistency is key when it comes to the SAT. It's all about patterns. There's not really, so the SAT doesn't have like, it's not like extremely challenging or extremely hard. Like they're not going to ask you like college level questions or anything like that. It's just whatever you learned in like 9th and 10th grade. The thing is the patterns. So it's just a key to understand how they set the test and everything. So you don't have to prep like 1 or 2 hours a day or sit the whole day and do like 8 hours a day. Even 5 or 10 minutes a day is more than enough just to do a few practice problems. There are a lot available on the internet. So I would say though is to do it every day consistently, even if it's 5 minutes a day. Since you have like a limited time window in which you need to prep for the exam, you want to do it at least, you want to do it every day. And like Chaplin said, definitely track your progress and do practice tests every week or every 2 weeks to see how you're progressing, and then also evaluate your answers and see where you went wrong and then work on those.
Absolutely. I think for the SAT, the biggest 2 things I'll say is pattern recognition and just practice exams and reviewing exams extensively. And I think Chaplin mentioned like a really smart strategy that I wish I had considered about using your own readings for your coursework to help guide for your SAT, because especially for the reading section, at some point it's really just like the SAT is a standardized exam, and so that means that the types of questions that they'll ask will always be very similar throughout the different passages and the different exams. So kind of reaching a point where you're familiar with the different types of questions that you will be asked for the SAT, and then using that to even like ask yourself those similar questions, like asking yourself detailed questions or asking yourself like what's the main idea of the passage while reading your own coursework readings. I think that is definitely like a good strategy to help with when you're in a time crunch. So the next question here is that I'll just answer this one really quickly. The person is participating in a very good extracurricular at an organization, but they don't have any proof to show admissions officers, and so will it count? And so just to quickly answer that, it can definitely count. There are very few cases where an admissions officer will actually ask you for proof of your extracurriculars, and so you won't need necessarily to show that proof. That doesn't mean you should abuse it though, because if you exaggerate or lie, college admissions officers will be able to see through lies or like large exaggerations, but you still can put that extracurriculars anyways. And if you are still looking for proof, even though you likely won't need it, you could look into asking the person who overseed you while you were working at that organization to write a recommendation letter. Many schools do allow for you to include an additional recommendation letter from a workplace or an internship or things along those lines. So that's also something to consider. But basically, you don't need to necessarily show proof in order to include it, and you should include it in your Common App anyways. So the next person here is asking that someone they know would like to apply to college as a freshman, but has already completed a year in college. And so the person can't submit his grades even if they were required to, because their grades likely weren't available for release. And so what should the person do in this case? And anyone can grab the question.
Yeah, I can just jump in really quick. That is a unique situation. I would either suggest number one, instead of applying as a freshman, you just transfer to the uni. It's definitely more challenging to get in as a transfer student, but it's a good alternative. Second one, this is something that a person that I know has done, where she studied 1 year of college here, but then she applied for a university she got into NYU. So she kind of dropped out of this uni and then just started university there. So you can, I think if you're in your freshman year, you can technically apply to university as in like a student instead of a transfer student. And if you get in there, you can drop out of university wherever you are currently studying. I also know of another person who did 2 years of college and then dropped out of college and applied as a freshman again. So if you're willing to take that risk and if you're willing to, switch to another college and drop out, I would suggest this is like a good alternative because it's worked out for the people that I know.
And I do just want to preface that it is like a very risky decision. So it is something that like you shouldn't make overnight, but should really like flesh out like the risks and the benefits. And also the person did include the grades not necessarily being available for release. And so in that scenario, when you're applying, I think it is also just important to just include that in your additional information section, or like also emailing this admissions officers and just letting them know that. There are most universities do still allow you to add additional information through your application portal, even after submitting the application. So there is still like room to add those grades even after you've submitted your app. But I do think it's just something that you should just include just in some place, just writing down and explaining that situation, I think would be helpful. And so the next specific scenario that we have here is a person is a US citizen living in Bolivia, but is currently contemplating taking a gap year and is currently in their senior year. And so their parents also don't make that high of an income and might not even be able to study in the States. And so what should this person do? I know both Aditi and Natasha have experience with gap years. So if either of you want to go through this question.
All right. I think, no, firstly, okay, this is going to be a fun question to answer. Taking a gap year is definitely a risky situation. So when I took a gap year, it wasn't to travel the world because COVID-19. But what I did do that year was I got a lot of internship experience because I could never work when I was in school. So you can, if you're thinking about gap year being expensive, your gap year will not have to be expensive if you're the one that's making money. I'm not saying it's easy to get internships. I'm just saying that once you give yourself that time, you can definitely develop your skills, polish your skills, and end up working somewhere, in the span of those 12 months. And number two, with college being expensive. So for me, as well, my parents aren't like paying for college. I've taken a student loan for my first year because it just made sense to me. It's my college that I wanted to study at. So I just wanted to pay for it myself. I would say though, look for a college that is going to, give you back 10 times what you give into it. And also, once you're here, you have to work really, really hard because there are opportunities out there. There are people out there who are willing to sponsor kids. There are people out there willing to give scholarships. Some scholarships are really, like Aditi mentioned, really small numbers, like $500, $1,000. But you won't realize, you just have to keep applying. And one day you look back and be like, oh, I got like a good chunk of like $10,000 from these like 15 small scholarships that I'd been applying to and I got into. So it really takes like being ruthless and aggressive in your preparation. If you really want to study in the States, if you have some particular colleges that you think you need to study at, definitely look at it. I also know that you're a US citizen, so if I'm not mistaken, you can still apply for FAFSA. Correct me if I'm wrong, Aditi or Chaplin, but even though you're technically staying outside of the US, you would still be considered a US citizen. So I think you'll have a lot of opportunities to apply for aid, to apply for scholarships. So if you don't want to miss out on the opportunity, don't miss out on the opportunity.
Okay, thank you so much, Natasha, for that. And so I think at this point, I am going to start going through the audience questions that have been coming in on our YouTube stream. And so the first question I'm going to ask Chaplin. So this person wants to know how they can convince their parents to study abroad, especially in this scenario where they don't have anybody they know with them.
Okay, so I think the main reason of studying abroad is to get a better education that you cannot get within the country that you're currently living in. And if you really want to go to one school and you want to persuade your parents to actually agree with you, first line your reasons. Why do you want to go to a college? You have to be so aware of yourself, what are the research opportunities, academic opportunities, what exact things do you want to study, what resources that college offer. You need to be so aware of these things so that when you're actually communicating with your parents or negotiating with the parents, they know what you want and they know what you're gonna do. This is the main thing, because a lot of international students, as far as I know, they don't plan before they come to US schools, and there are so many things going around. There are parties, there are internships, there are classes, there are so many things, and they don't plan beforehand, so they are just wandering around and achieve nothing in the end. But if you actually have a plan, and I mean, that's why a lot of parents would be worried. But if you actually have a plan, you know that what resources you're going to get, what research opportunities you're gonna try to apply for, and you basically communicate those things with your parents, they will know that you're actually a person with a goal in that university and you know what you want to be. I know that it would be a little bit hard, especially for high school students who actually weren't there and weren't don't have a specific academic goal or don't know you want to be, but at least try to plan out something that you can figure out before you come to the US college and communicate those things with the parents. And even though you might not know anyone in the college with a plan, you'll kind of navigate your way as long as you get there and not worry. Don't panic your parents. Yeah.
I love that answer. And then just talking a little bit more, just taking that a little bit more generally, I think that something that I kind of wish I had done is when you're in your process of applying to college in your senior year, don't solely look at just the scholarships available for incoming students, but also kind of plan ahead for like what honors programs and scholarships are available once you get on campus. And so while obviously it's not like too late, like once you get on campus, you still have time to like see what resources are available. I think it's still nice to just have it like beforehand, like when you're entering college, just having that like clear vision of like, this is what I want to do. Like, these are like the programs I want to apply to on campus, the internship opportunities, all of that. And like, it isn't a rush. Like if you can't like do that before you get to college, you still have time to do that when you're when you're in college and like on campus. But I think just planning ahead, I think is just so crucial for anybody, international or domestic. And so the next question that I want to go to is that this person is asking for what an ideal budget in USD could a senior allocate, or like an ideal budget for a first year student in computer science. Anyone can grab this question.
I can go ahead with that. I think it's difficult to say what an ideal budget would be because there are different colleges that you would be applying to, and there are varying, amounts of fees you have to pay. From my experience from my college, it's 50K a year as a comp sci student. So I would say if you're planning something out, and I was being really stingy as well, I would say 50K, which is like your fees, and then giving yourself 5 to 10K to for like additional money that you'd be spending, because that you have to pay for a lot of things, especially once you're like starting your visa process, booking your flight tickets. Here, once you get in, if you don't have to move in immediately, where are you going to stay? Do you have to rent? Do you have to like stay at a hotel or something, or book a room? So I would say, keeping all of that in mind, your school fees plus or minus plus 10,000 would be a good budget to have for your first year. It's very sad that it's so much money, but it's the reality.
Yes, thank you for that. And so the next question that I want to go to is that the person also doesn't have much knowledge of universities in the US that have computer science programs. And so if any of you could name a few institutions that are affordable in the US and that have good computer science programs for the person.
Okay, so there are a lot of colleges that have really good computer science programs. It's like way too many to name, but since you said affordable, there are a lot of colleges, like most of the top ones are generally like all have tuitions of $50,000, and this is only tuition. It doesn't count for housing or insurance or anything else. Yes, internationals, you have to pay for health insurance. So when you add up everything, it generally comes to around $70,000 a year, which is a lot of money. But I would say the more affordable ones that are also have really good computer science programs are Arizona State University, University of Massachusetts Amherst, Purdue University, University of Texas Dallas, any of the University of Texas actually, except Austin, because so the University of Texas system is very tricky because they only take in like a very small percentage of international students just because of like some weird Texas law. I don't know. But yeah, so they don't take a lot of international students generally. But yeah, those are a few good schools. There are a lot. I'm definitely not naming all of them just because I don't remember every single one off the top of my head, but you can definitely search them up. There are huge, not necessarily ranking lists, but there are huge just lists of colleges that you can find. Affordable, again, very subjective. So depending on what you design your affordability to be, you can just search through colleges, figure out if they are in your budget. Obviously, these are not going to be exact just because you're never going to know how much aid you're going to get, but you can kind of estimate and figure out if that college would fit your needs or not. But yeah, there are a lot of great computer science programs, colleges that have great computer science programs in the US, and you can definitely find one that fits you.
And I also just want to say that, like, as Aditi mentioned, there are lists out there. There are like a lot of lists that like show like colleges that international applications should look out for. After the panel is over, I will include a few links in an announcement following the event, but I do encourage you to like do your research online as well and like look for there's like Reddit posts and stuff that kind of go into more detail about like schools from the perspective of an international applicant. So definitely look out for stuff like that. And so another question that we have from our audience is, let's see, the person is asking what advice you have for the common application essay. So what should the main purpose be of the common application essay? Also, anyone can answer this question.
Is he asking about the personal statement one?
I guess so. It wasn't completely clear.
Yeah,
It was
okay.
a common essay, but
Yeah, okay. So I think the most important thing is to realize that the application, like the admission officers, they read like thousands of essays every day. So it's like inevitable for you to write something that would be similar to somebody else. So you should like just keep aware of that and don't try to panic yourself. Like I have to write something like very different. And just to think that if I have like just one single point for somebody else to remember me, what would that be? Like, what is the one single thing that I have been doing like probably all my life or 80% of my life, or I spend my 50% of my like spare time doing it just because I love it so much? Or what is the thing that people will remember when they are thinking about me and write about that thing? Yeah, that's the like just convey one single message to the admission officers so that they will like link you to that specific characteristic. Yeah, that was what I would suggest. Another suggestion would be show and tell. So don't like use dry activities and don't just like state what you did, but like how you feel, what you learn from this, like talk about your feelings and your like stream of thought, but don't make it too abstract. Give specific example and then like what do you feel through that. I can actually talk about like what I write in my personal statement. I wrote about because my voice is kind of like scratchy and I used to sing in the choir, but it's kind of like not how people like would usually sing in the choir because you know they want like a harmonized and like one single voice. So I was having this kind of like struggle, like whether to conform to the choir's voice or not. And then I decided to like follow my own voice, and then I leave the choir and do my own band. Like, because I've been doing music all my entire high school life, and that is such an important part of me. When people think about me, they will think about like, oh, the band singer. So that's why I'm putting that, as well as the characteristic, like I don't want to conform to the choir and things like that. You know, combines anecdotes with like what you've been doing and your characteristics together, and that would be like an amazing personal statement. But you definitely need to like put your ideas on a piece of paper and try to find the one thing that you would like mostly want to, like you would like most to write about and you would want to put forward to the mission officers. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I
Thank you
just,
so much. Go ahead,
sorry,
Natasha.
Kasim. I just
No,
wanted
no,
to add
no.
on to that because firstly, I think that's an amazing common app statement. I wish I could have read that, but I would really agree with the show and tell aspect of it. And just to add on to that, you don't have to write a descriptive essay. I don't need to know, where the sun was, how the wind was when something happened to you. It's more about showing how your brain works. Because I think the beauty of the common application essay is that they don't, at some point they stop caring about your extracurricular activities and whether you've won international awards or not, and they want to know more about how you as a person are thinking through a problem or thinking through a situation. So it's very easy for you to, and I keep telling this to people and they're like, what are you talking about? It's very easy for you to write a common application essay. You, as long as you don't worry about, oh, how do I stand out, how do I be unique, how do I write about something that nobody has written before, because you will never write about something that nobody has written before. It's just that you have to write it in a way that sounds like you, and that is very genuine and very true to who you are as a person. My common application essay was also about the thing that people recognize me as, which was the bathroom. So I wrote an essay on the bathroom, and I got into Georgia Tech. So like write about an essay that really speaks to you, because this is something that I read in one of the essay books that I was reading before I started writing. And what they said is it's a strategy, like it's a war strategy, but the thing is, if you know your opponent, it's harder for you to shoot them down, right? So you're not trying to get the admissions officer to like you. A lot of kids try to get some random adult sitting there to like them and to think that they're a really fun person. That's not your goal. Your goal is for them to know you and remember you, identify you. So they know that, okay, when I'm saying Chaplin, oh, the kid who's like the music producer kid, right? So you have to get them to know who you are. So as long as you can get them to do that, it's going to be harder for them to put your application in the rejection pile because they know you now. They know like a very significant part of your life. So just keep writing, and I'm sure everybody will come up with a common application essay that they're kind of proud of.
I love that.
Sorry, this is already long, but I definitely agree with everything that Chaplin and Natasha said. But I just want to add one thing. I think that okay, Natasha said it's really easy to write a common app essay. I struggled. Okay, I was writing my essay for like 5 months, and it still wasn't good. Okay, but that's because I am very bad at self-expression, and like I had to dig really deep to figure out what I wanted to write about, because I didn't even know what like kind of made me. Well, I did. I knew kind of who I was, but I deep down I didn't. But I think what everyone's like, how do you stand out? You're being yourself or standing out. There's nobody that's just like another person. We're all unique. Like no one looks the same, well, unless you're twins, but no one has the same personality. No two people on this planet out of the 7 billion, no two people are the same. You just have to be you to stand out. That's all you have to be. Don't try to be like, you see like some I don't know, computer geek or somebody sitting in like New Zealand or something, and you're like, oh, he's cool, I should be like him. No, you just be you. It doesn't matter if like you think you're whatever you've done is like insignificant or it's not good enough or whatever it is. Just you being you is standing out. All you have to do in your Common App essay is show the admissions officer a part of you and who you are. You don't have to tell them something that they're gonna like. They don't have to like it. Nobody cares about like some 40-year-old dude sitting in like this room in I don't know, God knows where. You, like Natasha said, you only need to make them remember you. You only have to write about yourself. Whatever happens next happens. Don't try to portray something that's not you. As long as you're being true to yourself, then.
Yes, exactly. I really appreciate all the advice that was shared. And I think just a few things to reiterate, the essay should be on you. So like, I know that there are like, for example, you might talk about like challenges or like activities you've participated or things along those lines. And like, no matter what you do, it doesn't matter like how you go about writing the essay, but what matters is that you talk about yourself and what attributes you want the admissions officers to remember. And then just on the point of uniqueness and standing out, there, even though maybe you might have the same activities as someone, or you might live in the same place as someone, or something along those lines, it's the alignment of the different events that may be similar to other people, but they're just aligned in such a specific way that makes you stand out. Like, for example, maybe you participated in debate and another person participated in debate, but you started debate at a very different time, or your journey through debate was very different from another person's journey in debate. And so it's kind of like looking for those very subtle differences that even among the similarities that make you, being authentic to yourself. I think that's really important. So the next question that I want to go to, I also just want to quickly say out loud, like, to please continue sending any questions that come up in the chat. We are kind of reaching a little bit of a standstill on questions, so we only have a few more questions that you've asked, so please continue sending them as they come in. And so the next question I want to ask is, a person is wondering when to start a conversation about studying abroad with their school counselor.
Okay, I guess I'll take this one. Ideally, as early as possible. Once you've made up your mind that you want to study abroad, and by that I mean not just the US, the UK, Australia, wherever you want to study. Once you've made up your mind that you will be applying to colleges there, I think it's really, really good to talk to your counselor about it. Especially when you have access to a counselor, do not skip out on the opportunity. And a lot of people that I knew who were applying abroad, they started, international students, they started in grade 11, sort of the beginning of grade 11, when they made up their mind that they wanted to study in these specific countries. And then their counselor helped them map out sort of a journey, like which by this week you have to come up with a college list. By this, you have to like trickle down to 8 to 10 colleges. This is the deadline for you to give your first draft for the essay. So as soon as you make up your mind, tell your counselors and start getting, if you have access to external help, start getting external help.
I also just want to add on that talking to a school counselor is not the same as talking to parents or convincing them. If you have like parents that don't want you to study abroad, I'm generally pretty bad at like making big decisions, and I always put it off to like the last minute. But the one thing that I did right, quote unquote, was I knew I wanted to go. I didn't want to study in India. This was like towards the end of 10th grade. I would say grade 11 is a great point to start talking to a school counselor. Honestly, you can start whenever you want. You don't want to start too early where college is the only thing that you're focusing on in high school, because that's not healthy either. But you have your counselor. They're there to help you. Make use of it. They're not gonna judge you. They're there to help you. They're there to help you figure out what you're gonna do after high school, what you're gonna do after college. So make use of that. Ask them all the questions that you have. Get all the information that you can from them. Just like milk the fact that you have a counselor in your school.
And so just on that very specific note, another person is asking what to do if your school doesn't have a counselor, or if you do have a counselor, but who isn't as knowledgeable about American universities.
Hi, I'm here again because I can relate to this question. So when I was applying to college, no, so we had an IB program, but I wasn't a part of it because it was expensive. So I did the ISC board here in India, and nobody that I knew was applying to college abroad. So my teacher as well, like the person who ended up writing my counselor recommendation, was just my English teacher. Like I had to tell her, like, okay, this is kind of what they want to see. Send her some sample recommendation letters, and this is the kind of language that we're expecting from students. So it sucks that your counselor knows nothing about American universities. That just basically means you have to do most of the work. It is very possible for you to get into really good universities without, having a counselor who's going to help you out. As long as you are strict and ready to, put in the work. Because the thing about counselors and how I've seen my friends who've had counselors sort of navigate that space is that firstly, they're going to give you a lot of resources when it comes to writing essays, picking colleges. They're going to give you a lot of, help in setting deadlines and making sure, because you can't start writing your Common App essay 1 week before the deadline. I'm sorry, this is not preparing for a test in high school. That's not how it works. So you have to be able to set those deadlines for yourself. I would say the very fact that you're in this panel means that you're getting, help from amazing organizations like EduVisa. So they're kind of like your counselor at this point. So make use of the resources you see here. Use the internet. It's a great resource. And something that I did a lot is I connected with people who are currently studying or have graduated from the schools that I wanted to go to on LinkedIn. And the thing is, these people have a lot of free time, surprisingly. I just be like a random kid, be like, hi, I'm from Hyderabad. I really like Georgia Tech. Can we get on a call? Because I want to learn more about this. And they'd be like, yeah, sure, let's get on a call tomorrow. I'm like, huh? How are we doing that? But talk to people, because there are people out there who want to help you out. With that in mind, I'm going to be sending something in the chat. You can connect with me. I wouldn't say I'm relatively free, but I respond to people. So if there's any way that I can help you out, I'd be more than happy to. A counselor is just, you can be your own counselor at this point. Sucks that it's that way, but I'm pretty sure you can make it work because I believe in you. Why is this a motivational TED talk?
I mean, I
Okay.
was
Sorry.
no,
I
no,
talk a
don't
lot.
apologize.
Bear
Go
with
ahead.
me,
No,
please.
go ahead.
Okay, so wait, what was the question?
If
What
your
was the
school
question?
doesn't, if your
No,
school
okay,
doesn't
yeah.
have a counselor, or if the
Fine,
counselor
okay.
isn't knowledgeable.
Okay, so I honestly, for me, the people at Eduvisa were my counselors. I didn't know anything, and I'm not like, I am not trying to. Okay, it's a shameless plug, but like genuinely, I had no idea about college admissions at all. Have an athlete, right? So I literally thought if you were recruited, you don't have to apply. And I thought this till like November. And I was like, wait, why am I even applying? Just get recruited at some place, fill out a form and go there. And then one of my friends was like, this is not how it works. So yeah, there are a lot of platforms on the internet where you can get all the resources you need. You don't need a counselor at all. Yes, counselors help. And if you think you don't, if you're still very unsure of like going through the whole process alone and you can't afford it, you can also get like an external counselor at one of those like college help company things. Totally not necessary at all, but if you want to, you can. There are a lot of resources on the internet, some good, some bad. It's kind of hard to filter that out, but there are a lot of places and forums where you can get all the information you want. Another great place to learn from, like Natasha said, is connecting with college students. She's right that college students are generally they're like always ready to like, I mean, they just reply quickly. I was very busy. So like when I reached out to only like a few people because I'm generally kind of like, now I'm more outgoing, but at the time I wasn't. So I was very scared to like actually reach out and message people, which I totally understand if you don't want to get on a call with like a random stranger from like the other side of the world. Texting exists. The COVID-19 has given us this great platform that, well, it was always there, but now it's more prevalent. So you can just shoot somebody a message. You don't have to call them. You don't have to speak to them. You don't have to show them your voice. You just can just type in your questions and they'll answer it back to you. And that's all that you need to get the information you want. That means that the college students are not as busy as we think they are. Well, they are, but they still spend a lot of the time online. I was very busy as a high schooler, so I had no time, and people were like, okay, let's call tomorrow. And I was like, can we do like next Thursday? Because I'm not free. And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'm free the whole day. And I'm like, what? How? I have like half an hour slot in the evening to talk, and you're like free the whole day. But anyways, college students are not as busy as we think they are. So don't be scared to like, oh, you disturb their schedule or whatever. If they're replying to you, they want to help you. So if worst comes to worst, they just don't reply, that's fine. Generally people are not rude, so they won't be like, no, I'm not going to talk to you at all. They just like are too busy and they won't reply. Yeah, answer questions. That was a lot, I'm sorry.
No, all of that was really valuable information. And I just want to college students on LinkedIn. I am more outgoing now, but I related to like feeling a lot more shy about like asking for a call. So for me, it was really just like sending a message alumni from my current high school who were attending schools I was interested in. So like, for example, my school kind of hosted this like college event where like some students who are current college students like were talking about their application journey. And so I kind of did something similar where I had I sent a message to someone who was applying to this, was currently attending the school I ED to. And so I asked them questions and it was just so valuable. So definitely do that. I just think that it's like, so like, even if you're feeling like insecure, you don't have to show your face. You don't have to like be on a call, but just start the conversations. And it can also lead to potential friendships that can lead into like networking and stuff. So definitely like look out for that. And so I do just want to end off with one final question. And this person is asking about any final advice from each of you about how to navigate the international college admissions process. So maybe if each of you three want to like go through and give like maybe like one strong piece of advice you have for an international student applying?
Okay, no, Chaplin, go ahead.
Okay, I think I would start with academic work. So I think that's so important because for a lot of times when we're applying to US colleges, we're actually seeing the scores that for like everywhere. So including US students and international students. And for a lot of the times, it is kind of like ours is we're kind of marginalized because we only constitute like about 15 to 20% of the whole college population. So like the scores that they have like on their website might not work for us. And sometimes you might think that your GPA is way higher or way lower, but you still kind of like see past applicants from your school who got like higher GPA than the average GPA they show on the website, but they still like got rejected. And you got kind of think like, oh, what's happening right here? So what I would suggest, like for the scores and every academic things, is just don't look at the scores on the official website. They might be helpful, but I think ultimately the admission officers, they're looking at how you're performing in the context of your school. I remember for UC Berkeley, they literally will put up like resumes from past applicants from your school, and then they kind of compare like their how they're doing with how you're doing in your school. So they're not like comparing you with like applicants from the US or applicants from other schools in your country. They're literally comparing you with like other students in your school. So for academic work, like don't panic if you have like lower scores or higher scores. Just do whatever you can and just do your best job in your school, and then apply if you think you've done decent work during high school. Yeah, that's what I would suggest you guys for like scores, AP, SAT and stuff, because for a lot of the times people ask me about like how, like what SAT scores you get, what AP scores you get. And like after I tell them my scores, and I'll tell them, okay, it's kind of useless for like giving you this piece of information because it doesn't mean anything. Yeah, just do your best in your school.
Okay, so this is a very, like, I would say probably the trickiest question, just because as you probably guessed, I talk a lot. So there's a lot that I could say with regards to college application. What I will say though is this is not related to any part of the application at all. And this goes for all applicants, both American and international. Don't stress so much on college applications. It is not as hard as it seems to be, and it should not be like taking your life away. That's not what it's meant to be. It's supposed to be a time of self-exploration where you kind of figure out who you want to be, what your interests are, what you want to do in life, and just have a good high school experience. We all, like, I've seen so many people that are just so stressed about applications in college, whether that's how to write the essay, extracurricular activities, how to manage time, what you want to major in, your test scores, your grades, with what school you're from, the fact that you're not from the US, needing aid. There are so many things that go into college applications and so many things to stress about. I understand, it's totally normal. I did it too, but don't let it consume you. It's very easy to just let college applications become your whole life. And then you finish applications like January and you're like, wait, what am I doing now? Like, I have nothing to do. I don't know what I'm doing. Just like, okay, we're all like, just kind of going through life as it comes. I know I am too, but you don't want to be in this state where you just like, you did something just for the sake of it. And then you look back and like, the last 4 years of my life were only to submit 5 forms. No, it wasn't even to get into like this great college. You're not going to feel that. It's not how it feels. You're not going to come to applications and be like, oh, okay, so at least I spent the last 4 years to do this. No, it's just going to be spending the last 4 years of your life to fill out 5 or 10 forms, and it's not going to be worth it at all. So just take it as like, applications is very stressful, can be very what's the word? I don't know. It can make you very anxious, but it's also an exciting time. Have fun with it. Figure out, do like a bunch of random things to figure out what your interests are. You can do like, and then to figure out your major also. You can do like, there's so many things that applications lets you do that also you can just use that as an excuse to do things that you normally wouldn't. Like, okay, so for me, I'm like in the STEM field, so like if I wanted to like do something like psychology or something, which I'm interested in, but my parents are like, yeah, you can just say, oh, it's for college apps, and then do like an extracurricular in that, and they're like, oh, this is going to help me in apps. And if your parents know nothing about applications, well, good for you, right? So yeah, this is very long, but just enjoy the process, have fun with it, meet as many people as you can. You can make a lot. I made so many friends just during applications. It's insane. And as stressful as it was and as much mental health as I lost, it was still a really fun experience. And it was an exciting time. Enjoy the whole, it was like about 2 years, but if it's 6 months, if it's 4 years, if it's 3 years, if it's 1 year, enjoy it. Have fun. Don't stress so much on the little thing. They don't matter at all. Just be you, submit your application, do your best. It's all that matters. Okay.
That was actually kind of perfect. I think I also did the thing where I was like, yeah, I'm doing this extracurricular activity because it's for, my college applications. And then I just do whatever I wanted to do. So definitely I use college applications as an excuse to do things that make me happy. So one good thing that I've done in life. I think one big piece of advice I'd like to give students who are applying right now is don't be shy. Your college application is not the place for you to be modest and downplay your achievements and be like, no, it's I did this, it's not that great, it's fine. This is the part where you actually talk about yourself because and showcase your talents and show off how amazing you are, because the person who's reading your application doesn't know that, oh, this person is actually really cool. It's just that they don't talk about themselves in a good light, or they don't what's the word for it? I keep forgetting the word for it, but they're very modest, so they won't brag about their achievements. Be braggy, it's fine. It's your application. You've done cool stuff, okay, and you're just showing them that you've done cool stuff. Am I asking you to lie on your application? No, don't do that. But do things and show those amazing achievements to your applications officers. Show them, even if a lot of people, one of the person I was helping out with an edu visa was asking me, I do this, I paint, but I haven't won any competitions, or I haven't sold any art pieces, so should I write about painting? I'm like, if it makes you happy, write about painting. He's like, I'm not a good painter. I'm like, who cares? Just write. If you like painting, write about it. Stop downplaying all of your achievements, stop downplaying your interests, and stop rejecting yourself before the admissions officer rejects you at this point. So just be yourself, brag about yourself, and you'll do great.
Thank you so much, all three of you, for all the beautiful advice. And I guess if I had to say like any advice, everyone who's in this call is here because you guys are hardworking. You guys are intelligent, and you guys are more than capable of getting into the school of your dreams. And even if you don't get into the school of your dreams, you will still move on to do amazing things. And so I know that even like I personally was a domestic applicant, and it was already so stressful, and I can only imagine how stressful it must be from the international applicant perspective. But I think remembering that we are here for you at Visa, we're here for you, and you also have so many different support networks available, whether that be your school counselor, if you don't have a school counselor, reaching out on social media platforms to current college students. There's just so much that you can do. And so all of you have it within you to be successful in whatever success means. And really a huge part is just believing in yourself. And so with that, I do think we have reached the end of the panel. And so I do want to just let you all know that we do have lots of other college events coming up, and we also have some community building events coming up. So definitely look out for those. I'll be sending an announcement soon about that. And a huge thank you to all again for all the advice that they've shared. I hope that you guys have learned a lot of insight and have gained a lot of knowledge about the questions that you've had. And if anything pops up, definitely join our Discord server if you're not on it already. And we have current college students who are more than willing to answer your questions as they show up. So thank you so much again, everyone. Another thank you to our panelists for being amazing. And I'll see you guys at the next session.